In September 2025, Britain said farewell to a woman who defied every royal convention. Catherine, Duchess of Kent, passed away at the age of 92, leaving behind not only memories of music, compassion, and rare modesty, but also questions that remain unanswered. The biggest one is deceptively simple: who will inherit her jewels? In her collection lay earrings once owned by Catherine the Great, a sapphire brooch from the Romanov treasures, the legendary Cambridge Peru of diamonds and sapphires, a tiara crafted by the French master Georges Fouquet, and pearls that had graced coronations and weddings throughout the 20th century. Many of these masterpieces have already vanished, sold off, lost, or scattered into private collections, yet some remain shrouded in mystery. Are they locked in the vaults of Buckingham Palace, kept quietly by heirs, or did they simply dissolve into the auction houses of the last century? That mystery is no accident. Unlike many aristocratic women, Catherine chose her own unusual path. From a Yorkshire girl at the piano to a prince's bride, from the radiant young woman in a sapphire ring and diamond tiara to a figure who later set aside royal protocol to teach music in an ordinary school. Her life was a jewel in itself, each stage adding a new facet, a new gleam. And to understand why the fate of her jewels fascinates collectors and historians almost as much as her biography, we have to go back to the very beginning, to the place where the story of the future Duchess began. Hovingham Hall, where little Catherine first touched the keys of a piano, never imagining that one day her hands would hold not only music scores, but also some of the rarest treasures in Europe. June 1961. Britain was holding its breath. For the first time in 100 years, the royal family would welcome a bride without a title, the daughter of a Yorkshire baronet. And this was no distant connection. The groom was the nephew of King George VI and cousin of Queen Elizabeth II. Catherine Worsley, the young musician with a gentle smile and determined character, was preparing for the day that would change her life forever. Even the choice of wedding venue broke with tradition. Not Westminster Abbey or St. Paul's Cathedral, but the soaring Gothic grandeur of York Minster, the heart of her homeland. People said afterwards that Catherine entered the royal family without ever leaving her roots, and that was her first message to the monarchy. But the truest words were spoken in stones. On her hand sparkled a sapphire engagement ring, an oval blue gem flanked by 2 round diamonds, set in platinum. To most, it was simply an elegant choice. To those who knew the family history, it was an echo, for it mirrored the ring once worn by her future mother-in-law, the celebrated Greek beauty and style icon, Princess Marina, Duchess of Kent. A thin but powerful thread now linked generations. A commoner bride bound herself not only to Prince Edward, but also to a line of women whose jewels spoke as powerfully as their actions. Her wedding gown, designed by Irish couturier John Kavanagh, seemed to mirror the cathedral's own architecture. A high collar, a narrow waist, a skirt of nearly 200 yards of airy silk gauze, and a 15-foot train flowing like stained glass light. Yet the image would not have been complete without the tiara. For her wedding day, a diamond bandeau from Queen Mary's collection was brought out, once passed from Princess Marina to her daughter-in-law. Its low, almost architectural line of diamonds, set in a design that was strict yet refined, suited the young woman perfectly as she stepped into the world of court protocol and official portraits. The bandeau didn't overwhelm her, it emphasized her purity of image, as if to say, in this story, the crown is not the focus, the Duchess herself is. That June day marked the debut of a duet that would define her jewelry life. The sapphire on her finger and the line of diamonds across her brow. These 2 symbols became the leitmotif of her adornments for decades to come. To marry a prince meant not only entering the royal family, but also accepting its past. If the sapphire ring tied Catherine to the image of her mother-in-law, the true weight and beauty of heritage revealed themselves later, through the chest of jewels that had belonged to Princess Marina, Duchess of Kent. At the heart of that inheritance was the legendary Cambridge sapphire Peru, one of those collections whose history can be told as a dynasty in stones. Its story reaches back to the 18th century, when it belonged to Princess Augusta, daughter of the Duke of Cambridge. Later, it passed into the hands of Queen Mary of Teck, who believed every jewel was part of history and had no hesitation about altering them to suit modernity. She expanded the set, adding new elements and turning it into a dazzling emblem of dynastic wealth. From her, the sapphires passed to her daughter-in-law, the Greek princess Marina, wife of the Duke of Kent. Marina understood the power of spectacle. Her portraits in the sapphire tiara, long necklace, and bracelets became icons of royal style in the mid-20th century. When Marina died in 1968, the Peru went to her son, the Duke of Kent. But jewels of such scale were meant to be worn by his wife. And so, Catherine inherited sapphires that carried within them echoes of Catherine's Russia, Victorian England, and Edwardian brilliance. Picture it, a massive tiara like waves of deep blue sea cresting on diamond arches, a heavy yet majestic necklace falling nearly to the chest, a brooch like a drop of sky resting on velvet. All of this graced her shoulders as she faced cameras and state halls. Yet, like history itself, these sapphires knew no rest. By the 1980s, financial shadows loomed over the Kent family. Keeping such treasures proved impossible. Parts of the set, including the main tiara, were sold. The remnants were reworked into the button tiara, a modest circlet of sapphire and diamond clusters mounted on velvet. The question hung in the air: was it better to keep a relic locked in a safe where no one would see it, or to reshape it, giving the stones a new life? For Catherine, that choice became symbolic. She never clung to form. She allowed jewels to breathe. Yet even this adaptation faded with time. The last pieces of the set were eventually sold. Today they exist only in private collections and auction catalogs. The story of the Cambridge sapphires is not just about beauty. It is a drama of how family fortunes and personal choices can rewrite the biography of stones. If the Cambridge sapphires were a heavy poem of power and continuity, her earrings were a drama in 3 acts. They began in the era of Catherine the Great, continued with Marina of Kent, and returned again in the 20th century on Catherine's ears. These were the diamond girandole earrings, created around 1770. Their form resembled a chandelier, a central drop framed by the sparkle of old-cut diamonds, with 2 smaller drops at the sides. In the candlelight of the 18th century, they flamed as though each facet poured out streams of light. The first owner was Catherine the Great herself, who loved bold pendants that proclaimed her majesty. After her death, the earrings passed to her granddaughter, Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna the Elder, whose collection was one of the richest in Europe. From her, they went to her daughter, Grand Duchess Elena Vladimirovna, mother of Princess Marina. Marina brought the earrings to Britain when she married the Duke of Kent. For her, they were more than jewels. They were a link to Russia, lost after the Revolution. At the 1937 coronation of George VI, Marina wore them among the royal ladies, and photographs from that day fixed the earrings forever as a symbol of a lavish but fading world. After her death in 1968, the earrings passed to her eldest son, Edward, and thus to his wife, Catherine. The young Duchess understood their significance. She wore them at official banquets, state receptions, and on overseas tours. Earrings with the legacy of Catherine the Great and Marina of Kent became part of her own image. But as with the sapphires, the story ended in a sale. In the mid-1990s, family pressures forced the Kents to part with the relic. In 2000, the earrings appeared at Christie's. There, an unexpected twist emerged. Some of the stones had already been replaced with imitations. 4 large diamonds were glass. Even so, the earrings sold for nearly £40,000. And then came the twist no one could have predicted. These earrings, once glittering at coronations and royal balls, reappeared, this time on the ears of Kim Kardashian. The Hollywood star borrowed them from an antique dealer for photo shoots and high society events. Later, socialite Daphne Guinness was also seen wearing them. The world seemed to turn upside down, from Catherine the Great to reality television, from the Gothic halls of the Kremlin to the red carpets of Los Angeles. It was a story of how jewels can change not only their owners, but their cultural meaning. Yet for Catherine, these earrings had always been more than a relic. They symbolized her own place in the chain of generations, when the legacy of another empire became part of a family portrait. Catherine's jewelry story began on her wedding day, when she first wore the delicate diamond bandeau tiara from Queen Mary's collection. Light and almost architectural in form, it was the perfect ornament for a young bride. Its history reached back to her mother-in-law, Princess Marina. It was through her that the bandeau entered the Kent collection, and on the eve of the 1961 wedding, it became part of the new Duchess's trousseau. Photographs from that day capture the image: young Catherine in a tulle veil, secured by the strict line of diamonds, and a sapphire ring shining on her hand. The simplicity and clarity of the ensemble highlighted both her tenderness and her determination to enter a new family. Through the 1960s, this tiara became her companion at countless occasions: Uganda's independence celebrations in 1962, the coronation of Tonga's king in 1967, and glittering receptions at Versailles. It was versatile, light to wear, in harmony with modern gowns, yet carrying the weight of history. But in the 1970s, everything changed. Catherine was no longer the young bride, but a senior member of the royal family. The delicate bandeau now seemed too modest for state banquets. A decision was made to transform it. Thus was born the Kent pearl fringe tiara. From the original bandeau, some openwork elements were removed, replaced with a new crown of diamond rays, each topped with a round pearl. The result was far more regal, with strong vertical lines recalling traditional coronation fringes, softened by the glow of pearls. For Catherine, it was deeply symbolic, as though life itself demanded more height, and the tiara answered that call. From then on, the pearl fringe became her signature diadem. We see it in photographs from the Silver Jubilee Parade of Queen Elizabeth II in 1977, at lavish Windsor banquets, and at receptions for the kings of Spain and Brunei. The tiara merged with her public image, becoming the workhorse of her jewelry box. But the most memorable moment came in 1992 at the wedding of her daughter, Lady Helen. The bride appeared in the same pearl fringe tiara that had accompanied her mother for decades. It was not only a continuation of tradition, but a rare moment in the Kent line where an ornament symbolized continuity between generations. The pearl fringe reflected Catherine's own journey, from the light diamond bandeau of a young bride to the majestic, crown-like silhouette of a seasoned royal figure. A tiara always makes a statement, but true royal splendor only comes when it is paired with a full ensemble. For the Duchess of Kent, that partner was the pearl and diamond parure that entered her collection in the 1980s. The parure included a bold necklace of alternating round pearls and diamond pave links, centered on a detachable pendant with a large pearl encircled in diamonds. Matching earrings, each with a single pearl and 3 diamond drops, completed the set. This combination embodied the spirit of the 1980s: oversized forms, confident symmetry, and a balance between the cool brilliance of diamonds and the soft radiance of pearls. Worn with the pearl fringe tiara, the parure created an image of harmony, monumental, yet never excessive. Photographs from that era reveal a gallery of her appearances in this ensemble. A state banquet for King Juan Carlos I of Spain, where the pearls seemed to echo the glow of Windsor's chandeliers. The state opening of Parliament, where the tiara, parure, and understated gown underscored her status as a senior royal on display. The Polish state visit, where the pearl and diamond set became a near symbol of Britain's traditional elegance. Lady Helen's wedding, when the parure gained intimate family meaning, mother and daughter united in an image the public would long remember. But, just as with so many Kent jewels, the 1990s brought losses. After the middle of the decade, the pearl and diamond parure vanished from the public record. Experts believe it was sold, like much of the family's other jewelry, when financial pressures became impossible to ignore. Still, its memory endures. Today, historians and royal jewelry enthusiasts often note that this ensemble may have been the most harmonious of the Duchess's life. It did more than highlight her beauty, it reflected the balance she always sought: grandeur matched with gentleness. If pearls and diamonds symbolize tradition, then the aquamarine tiara by Georges Fouquet opened a door to another world entirely, the world of Art Nouveau, refined and daring at once. Created by the French master in 1908, the tiara originally took the form of a broad band of enamel, large diamond flowers, and oval aquamarines at the center of each motif. It made its debut at the 1910 Brussels exhibition, immediately recognized as a masterpiece of early 20th century jewelry design. Later, the tiara was altered, the enamel base was removed, and the floral elements were reset onto a lighter frame. It was in this form that it reached Catherine, Duchess of Kent. At the time, aquamarine was seen not only as a fashionable gem, but also as a symbol of freshness and clarity. For a duchess whose life was so bound to music and the search for inner harmony, the choice was uncannily perfect. The tiara spoke not of royal weight, but of art's living breath. Catherine first appeared in it in the late 1980s. Her looks from that era seemed strikingly modern. The aquamarine tiara never weighed her down, but rather refreshed her image, adding a youthful note. It was especially striking with sky blue gowns or silvery fabrics that enhanced the translucent brilliance of the stones. Photographs survive of her wearing it at diplomatic receptions in the early 1990s. Against the backdrop of traditional diamond coronation sets, her aquamarines looked intellectual, rare, almost like a cultural statement rather than a mere ornament. But like so many Kent treasures, the tiara did not remain in the family. In 2014, it was sold at Sotheby's in Geneva for over $200,000. Today, it rests in a private collection, its reappearance in public only a dream for historians and collectors. The Duchess of Kent's jewel box was never just a chest of glittering stones. It contained the histories of empires, revolutions, and exile. Among its treasures were pieces that tied her directly to the fate of the Romanovs and their tragic end. One of the most significant was a sugar loaf sapphire in a diamond setting, known as the brooch of Maria Feodorovna, the Dowager Empress of Russia. The cabochon, of remarkable depth of color, was framed by 4 square diamonds and accompanied Maria Feodorovna in her final journey. It was among the jewels she managed to take out of Russia after the revolution. After her death in 1928, some of her jewels were sold by her daughters. Ever the sharp-eyed collector, Queen Mary acquired the brooch for £2,850, an astonishing sum at the time. In her hands, the stone became a symbol of Russian treasures, returning to an English setting, as though she were piecing together fragments of the Romanovs' scattered legacy. The brooch later passed to Princess Marina, then to Catherine herself. In the 1970s and 1980s, the Duchess often wore it in daylight, pinned to the lapel of a jacket or the brim of a hat. Its last prominent outing was in 1984, at the unveiling of the Lord Mountbatten Memorial in London. After that, its trail went cold. Where it rests now remains a mystery. The third emblem of this imperial line was a gold and pearl brooch with a cross, once beloved by Queen Victoria. It had appeared at family christenings in the 19th century, and after several generations, found its way into Catherine's hands. She first wore it in the 1970s, then again at the funeral of Cardinal Hume in 1999, and at Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee service in 2012. Here, past and present literally met. A brooch that had witnessed the Victorian age returned to mark the 60-year reign of her great-great-granddaughter. Taken together, the earrings of Catherine II, the brooch of Maria Feodorovna, and Victoria's relic, these were not just ornaments. They were three threads linking Catherine to the grandeur, the drama, and the memory of three different empires. And each reminded us, even the most dazzling jewels are as vulnerable to fate as the royal houses to which they once belonged. However, there was another set, much more intimate and family-oriented. This was the diamond floral set with pearls, which, according to researchers, Catherine received as a wedding gift in 1961. The central piece was a floral diamond brooch with a large pearl at its heart. It was accompanied by flower-shaped earrings with hanging pearls and several miniature accessories. In contrast to the grand parade set of the 1980s, this set stayed with Catherine throughout her life. She wore it during her active royal duties and after stepping away from public life. In 2011, it made an appearance at the dinner before the wedding of William and Catherine Middleton, and in 2016, it was seen again at a reception for young musicians at Buckingham Palace. These moments felt particularly poignant. While many of her jewels disappeared into auction houses, this little family bouquet accompanied her until the end. We must also mention the large pearl earrings inherited from Princess Marina, her mother-in-law. Catherine wore the classic pearl and diamond earrings throughout the 1970s and 80s, but their trail ended there. Perhaps they stayed in the family vaults, perhaps they were sold as well, but they added that unmistakable, clean line that made her appearance so recognizable. Thus, two sets, one grand, the other intimate, represented the two poles of her jewelry identity. One spoke to her role on the world stage, the other to her personal life, her family, and her affections. And it is this contrast that makes Catherine, Duchess of Kent's collection so human. Every aristocrat has that one piece of jewelry that becomes their calling card. For Catherine, it was the tiaras. She had several, and each one not only highlighted her image, but also mirrored the internal transformation of the woman, from a young bride to an experienced spouse, from the modest princess from Yorkshire to one of the most unusual figures at the British court. For decades, Catherine accompanied her husband to state banquets, official receptions, and ceremonial parliamentary openings. Photographs from the 1970s and 1980s captured her in the pearl and diamond fringe, adorned with orders and long evening gowns. She seemed to dissolve into the radiance of hierarchy, becoming its natural part. But inside the Duchess lived another energy, the energy of music and human warmth, which could not be concealed forever. In 1993, the world saw what she could be outside the protocol. At Wimbledon, during the final, tennis player Yana Novotná, after suffering a crushing defeat, broke down in tears on the court. And it was Catherine, presenting the silver plate to the finalist, who did the unexpected for a royal family member. She embraced the young woman and allowed her to cry on her shoulder. The photograph of that moment traveled the world. In that instant, titles, status, and distance disappeared, only simple human empathy remained. By the late 1990s, the Duchess began to consider stepping back. Her health had declined, the family's financial situation required decisions, but most importantly, she yearned to live life on her own terms. And in 2002, Catherine did something rarely seen in the royal family. She completely renounced her royal duties. She stopped appearing at official ceremonies and took a seat at a school piano. In a regular primary school in Hull, children knew her not as the Duchess, but as Mrs. Kent. She taught young children the basics of music, patiently showing them how to place their fingers on the keys, and rejoiced at every successful chord. Children are like little sponges. They absorb everything you give them. And music helps them believe in themselves, she said. In the school cafeteria, in a crowded classroom, or at a concert by her students, her aura was different from that at Buckingham Palace receptions. No glittering jewels, but the light of inner warmth. It was then that her new mission was born. In 2004, Catherine founded the charity Future Talent, dedicated to supporting young musicians from underprivileged families. She knew the value of music. It was in Hovingham Hall, where her childhood unfolded, that she first sat at an organ and realized that sounds could change the world. Now she wanted to offer that same opportunity to others. This was more than just a hobby. She openly admitted that she listened to not only classical music, but also rap, and even admired Eminem's work. Her eclectic taste surprised many, but it was precisely this that made Catherine real and alive, not just a museum figure. And so, when the news of her passing came in September 2025, England lost not only one of its oldest duchesses, but a woman who showed that a crown can shine not only with diamonds, but with kindness. When Catherine, Duchess of Kent, passed away in September 2025, her family gathered quietly in her room. But beyond those walls, the question arose, quickly picked up by collectors, journalists, and enthusiasts of royal jewels: what would happen to her jewelry? Unlike the crown regalia, which are firmly tied to the monarchy, the Duchess's personal jewels are a complicated knot of heritage, emotions, and deals made decades earlier. Some of them had long since been sold at auctions, some had disappeared without a trace, scattered into private collections. But there are still those that lie in vaults, waiting for their fate. The Cambridge sapphire parure, inherited from Princess Marina, survived grand balls, Cecil Beaton portraits, and coronations, only to be ruthlessly sold, first in parts, then completely. The tiny button tiara made from the remnants disappeared like a mirage. Will it ever be found? Or is it another ghost in the Windsor story, like so many forgotten jewels? The girandole earrings, created in the 18th century, sparkled by candlelight during Catherine the Great's reign, survived their journey from Russia to England, crowned the portraits of Marina and Catherine at coronations and parades. But in the 21st century, they ended up on the ears of Kim Kardashian and Hollywood socialites. For some, it's a scandal. For others, proof that the story of jewels never ends, it only changes its settings. The pearl and diamond fringe, once transformed from a light wedding bandeau, will remain in memory as her symbol. With this fringe, she entered the 1970s and 1980s, wore it at parliamentary openings, sat beside the Queen at jubilees, and it was the very tiara her daughter Helen wore on her wedding day. Perhaps this tiara will remain in the family, passed down from generation to generation, as a living thread connecting the past and the future. The aquamarine tiara by Georges Fouquet, once bought for Marina and later transformed into a lighter tiara, was sold in 2014. Who owns it now is a mystery. But wherever it may be, every time it resurfaces in auction catalog photographs, it reminds us of a woman who knew how to blend tradition with innovation. Yet, if we set aside the sparkle of diamonds and the shadows of loss, the true legacy of Catherine remains not in her jewelry box, but in what she created herself. Music classes, school choirs, the Future Talent Foundation, which gave hundreds of children a chance. This is the pearl that will never disappear, neither at auction nor in a vault. Catherine, Duchess of Kent, was a woman whose life proved that even with the legacy of the Romanovs and the Hanovers, one could choose the path of simple human service. Her jewels may pass from hand to hand, vanish, be sold, or kept under glass, but her image at Wimbledon when she embraced the crying athlete, and her smile in a school classroom, those will remain forever. And perhaps this is the greatest paradox of her story. The jewels shone, but the radiance of her soul proved stronger.